Dr. Stephen Greer has just made some, I'm gonna say it, bombshell claims. Bombshell, right? So over on watchmojo.com, which I was really surprised to see this, because watchmojo.com is typically like a top 10, top 5 kind of YouTube channel. But they done an entire interview where Dr. Stephen Greer on the UFO Criminal Cabal and CE5 Contact unveiled episode 23, right? Spoke about some very, very interesting things. And we're going to kind of go over the key highlights of this, because what he was talking about is pretty significant. And he even goes on to call out some major players within the UFO space, which as well is something that we're seeing a lot more of at the moment, which I'm not necessarily sure I'm a fan of, because the whole idea of UFO exposure transparency is unity. That's kind of the best way that we get this, which the UAP hearings have done a fantastic job of doing, which is to bring unity to these whistleblowers, and also to a degree a form of protection through exposure, okay? But we're starting to see a lot of big players in this field go head to head against each other. Representative Luna, Lou Elizondo, Ross Coulthart, many other people. You know, all of these people are starting to really kind of butt heads. Ross Coulthart even called out Congress recently for basically not doing enough, or just kind of sitting on this information. And it's quite significant. So one of the first kind of key points that he talks about is that Joe Rogan isn't actually allowed to talk to Stephen Greer directly, and was forced to remove his interview from the Joe Rogan Experience. Have a little listen to this, because obviously that's quite significant.
What you'll find is that the people who actually know all the truth about this will not be allowed to speak about it on large platforms. Like I was on Joe Rogan back in 2013 or something. And in order for him to get his $100 million, they had to take my interview out of the lineup. Right?
Yeah, I watched it in preparation for this interview. I had to go and find it. Somebody else uploaded it on YouTube, and I was able to watch it.
Oh,
but
really?
What was remarkable was that, you know, your story has not changed one bit since 2013. It's been this exact same thing. And so Joe Rogan in particular has seemed so embracing of this whole UFO disclosure thing, and has had many other people on his show, but hasn't invited you back and rarely speaks about you, which I find odd.
He's not allowed.
It is very odd, and he obviously says there that he's not allowed to. But who is putting that stopper in place? Obviously, we know about the whole Spotify deal and all the rest of it. There was a huge controversy around it when he basically sold all the rights to this, right? But that's quite significant. That is quite significant that he's not allowed to speak about Stephen Greer, and he's already got, like, a lot of people are involved. So he's got Lou Elizondo he spoke to Representative Luna recently, he's spoken to David Grush, like lots of people. Like one of his big USPs is the UAP advocacy that he goes down, but he's not allowed to talk about Stephen Greer, which I find highly, highly interesting. Now, he also says that, makes some comments about Donald Trump, right? So he states that Donald Trump doesn't want to take on the UFO issue right now, but will be forced to because disclosure is coming before 2028. Now, we've obviously had a lot of time frames from a lot of people. We've got Jeremy Corbell, who came out in it was like a trailer of some kind recently, where he stated that there's going to be some catastrophic disclosure in 2027, which was interesting. Let's take a little listen to what Stephen Greer's got to say, because obviously 2027, Greer's saying 2028. Would Trump still be in president? Yeah, he would be still in presidency, yeah. So he might have to apparently face the music.
We're at a key turning point. We're going to have to choose. And you know, one of the president's friends told me that he really wasn't wanting to take this on right now. And I said, well, he's not going to have a choice. You know, as I see it, there's not going to be a choice. This is going to happen on his watch, and it's going to happen well before in 2028. This is only 2025. And like it or not, this is all going to come out, and it has to be managed properly.
So obviously referring to some kind of catastrophic disclosure, but what would that mean? Like, the thing is, right, is with Stephen Greer, a lot of people, even down in the comments of this clip that I've just shared, right here, for example, if he keeps saying things like that, one of these years he'll be right. A lot of people say that he's said the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, and he keeps throwing out these years, right? So another one comment right here. Oh great, another the goalpost got moved again. Now it's 2028. Lol. Look, I hold no malice towards Greer, but he's full of shit, and has been for 35 years. Another timeline, another mark on your calendar date by Greer. Not the first time. A lot of people don't necessarily buy into this potential narrative. There's also some other things as well. Now, this is where it takes a bit of a turn, because Stephen Greer is asked about the Nazca mummies, of course, the ones that were found and are currently being held by Jaime Maussan. They were presented in front of the Mexican Congress back in 2023, if memory serves me right. And they've been a huge talking point for sure. A lot of people say that they are completely legit. A lot of people say that they're nothing more than smoke and mirrors, or cake was even one of the things. Paper mache was one of the things as well. But he was obviously asked about them, and he goes after Gary Nolan, claiming that he was paid, get this, to fabricate the Atacama skeleton analysis, and says that he can prove it. This again is one of those times where we're just seeing people batting off against each other, and it's not. Well, I'll get into that in just a minute.
The other topics that have been making the rounds, there's the Nazca mummies, which have been getting increased exposure in recent weeks. And this ties into what you featured in your first documentary, Sirius, about the Atacama humanoid, and it ties into, you going back and rewatching that. I was surprised because I didn't remember what a large role Dr. Gary Nolan played in analyzing that body. And then looking at the things that he has said publicly since, it kind of contrasts with what was presented in the film. What's your reaction to the findings and the statements that he's made about it?
Well, we know they were false. And around the time we handed off the DNA sample to him, he received about a little over $3 million in funding from the Department of Defense. And the top two geneticists in the world, one of whom worked closely with Watson and Crick, who, of course, discovered the DNA molecule, have analyzed the work he did and said it was deliberately fraudulent, and that it almost absolutely did not reflect, and it wasn't even done properly, how you would do what's called ancient DNA, not a living species like you or me doing a DNA sample, but something, that's very old, decades or hundreds of years old, which we don't know. So unfortunately, that research was completely fraudulently done, and we can prove it. Now he's getting money from CIA to prove that the NHI are creating brain damage in humans, when in reality, all those occurrences are man-made psyops, as I just described. So it's disheartening. And the question is, what's your price? What is your price?
A lot of people are saying, if this is true, right, where's the evidence to back up some significantly bold claims? And again, echoed in the comments section is people saying, right, if that is the case, we hear what you have to say here. Can you prove what you're saying? Because you're saying to us that, he's been bought off, that he's fraudulently put out this evidence, but prove it. It's so interesting. And again, we're just seeing people batting off each other. Gary Nolan's the bad guy. Ross Coulthart's the bad guy. Representative Luna's the bad guy. Lou Elizondo's the bad guy. David Grush's the bad guy. Greer's the bad guy. We're just seeing it back and forth all the time. Instead of this kind of unity, it's almost like everyone wants to be the guy that brings out the UFO information, right? And they want to be top dog. And instead of working together, to raise the topic. It's like, I'm going to push you down because it puts me above the parapet for my information. I'm going to discredit you in any way that I can because it makes me then look more credible. Then I become the number one source of information. Some people would argue what comes with that being that top dog of information? Lucrative deals. Let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. I find it very, very interesting. I find it disheartening at the same time, but that's just me. Let me know what you guys think. While you're down there, jump scare the hell out of that like button and subscribing. Until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.